do is we're gonna paint the half cupcake with the blue background, just making sure my brush is nice and dried off and cleaned up from last time. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start by drawing my half cupcake. The first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna figure out where the bottom of my cupcake is. So I'm gonna come just a little ways up, just a couple inches up on my canvas, and I'm gonna draw as straight of a line as I can. Going over not quite halfway, the halfway mark. Here's halfway about here. So I'm not going all the way over to halfway. It's a little bit rounded since the bottom of my cupcake is round. So what I can do is I can erase this a little bit so that it's a little bit rounded. But it's not aiming down or aiming up. If I aim this up, the cupcake's gonna look like it's falling off the canvas here, and if I aim it down, it's gonna look like it's tipping this way. So I've got it relatively straight. I've got it almost to my halfway point. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw the side of my liner. And again, I'm not gonna go all the way up to my halfway point, but I'm going to stop just a little below it. And then what I'm gonna do, I like to turn my canvas a lot because that just makes it easier for me, so you can do whatever you're comfortable with. But as you can see, I'm just making a little zigzag here. I'm trying to keep them about the same angle, about the same height, about the same width. It's not gonna be perfect, but I wanna try and keep that little pattern going. I got a little crazy on this end over here. You can see these are all about the same height, and then whoops, I got a little excited. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna erase that, make it a little shorter. There we go. So the next thing that I'm gonna do is I am going to draw the actual cupcake, the actual cake of it. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this part straight. I wanna see just a little sliver of it. I don't wanna see a ton of it. And then I'm gonna round off this edge so that it's inside of that cupcake liner. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start adding my layers of frosting. And you have to decide how many layers you want. But what I want is I want it to kind of go up so that it gets narrow at the top. So it's gonna start off around the same size as our cake. So it's almost out as far as our cake is. I'm gonna come up a little bit and I'm gonna kind of think of frosting, and frosting is fluffy and airy. So I don't want it to be just like a up, down, very straight edge or anything. I wanna go ahead and I wanna make it a little rounded here. So there's my first layer of frosting. I love frosting cupcakes, one of my favorite things. And frosting is really the only reason to eat a cupcake as far as I'm concerned. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna really stack my frosting on here. Now, I'm going a little bit higher, but it's not coming out as far, because again, I'm gonna kind of make it come up this way here. But I'm still gonna go ahead and have my little line here so you can see that it's a layer. If we think of it swirling around kind of like this, that kind of gives you an idea. And then I'm gonna give it maybe one more good layer here, because I do wanna have a little bit more room on top, because I want to be able to add, I'm gonna make a little pocket here so that I can add a little cherry. So see how I made a little rounded area here? I'm gonna go ahead and draw this part of the cherry, because that can go right up top. I'm not gonna worry about the stem of the cherry. I'm gonna paint my background first, and then I'll go ahead and I'll paint the stem after that. If I draw my stem, then I have to paint around my stem, and sometimes it's just easier. You gotta kind of get a feel for it and decide which one's more important. And then the last thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to find my tabletop. So again, I want my tabletop to be straight. If all of a sudden I draw my line going down this way, it's gonna look like this cupcake is supposed to be falling off. So I wanna try and keep it as straight as possible. I'm just gonna come right about here. I don't want too much tabletop. I just want it to be sitting on something so it's not floating in the middle of nowhere. And there we go. So we're ready to start painting our cupcake. I'm gonna take this line in just a little bit more. So if you kind of look at your cupcake now, you can kind of see, you know, what you like, what you don't like. If there's something that you want to change, now's the time. Remember, at any time during this video, if I go too fast, or if you really want to work on the detail of something, you're going to want to hit pause, and you're going to want to take that time and make sure that you have it exactly as you want it. Now, I know when I've done this painting in the past, some of the struggles that people have had are getting this layered frosting. So the couple tips that I want to give you is to remember that it's supposed to be longer at the bottom and then get shorter as we go up. One of the things that tends to happen is people kind of make these lines kind of on a diagonal this way. They come down too far, and then all of a sudden it looks like that frosting is really teetering, kind of coming this way. So what you want is you want this part to be kind of straight. Even though you're curving it, you want it to be kind of on the same level here. If all of a sudden it's doing this, we want to erase it and bring this line back up so that it's more straight. See how you can tell it's curved, but it's still kind of following that straight line. That's what's making it look leveled. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to paint. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my biggest brush that I have. I'm going to dip it just a little bit into my blue paint because I'm going to do a blue background here. And I'm going to go ahead and dip it into the white. And what's fun about this background is that I am not going to make it this perfect blend. I'm going to make it kind of a fun crisscross background. Now you can do whatever you'd like, but in order to do this kind of look, I'm pretty much just painting X's. So what I'm doing is I'm really loading both sides of my brush, and then I'm taking this and I'm pushing down one way and then pushing down the other way. But I'm just doing it kind of quickly here, which is why you see me doing this. So as you get a feel for it, you're going to be able to really get your brush moving. Now, the more that you go over it, the more those colors are going to blend together. So it's up to you how much blue you want to see, how much white you want to see, or if you just want to see one shade. If you only want to see one shade and you really want them to blend together, then you're going to keep going over certain sections and make sure it really stands out. Now, I don't know. Do I want this little bit of blue here, this little bit of white here? I don't know. So if I don't, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go right over it, and that's what's going to make it blend in. But now if I look and I say, well, I kind of wanted a little something, I can just go right into my white and I can start going right over it. And then you're adding those little details back in. And you can do the same thing with the blue. So it's really just what you want and kind of what your taste is, what you kind of like and what you don't like. So don't worry, because remember, every time we paint together, I'm going to say the same thing where every painting is going to look different. That's a good thing. I want you to embrace it because it makes you you, and that's very important. If we were all the same, it would be very, very boring. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of coming in close to those edges, but I don't want to leave it with these streaks here unless I was going to put those streaks everywhere else. So now that I got in close to those edges, I can crisscross these spots very carefully. And that's what's going to make it blend into the rest. So see how now it blends into the rest? So I'm going to do that same thing. Just like that. So again, now you can see that bump. So we want to go ahead and we want to make that crisscross so that that bump blends in. I'm going to go right around this cherry. And do the same thing. Just going to add a couple little white spots up there. And then I'm going to come down and I'm going to start working on this side. And again, I'm just going to pull it away so that I can get right up to that line. Being very careful. And same here. And I'm just crisscrossing. just like that. Now again, I see a couple white spots through here, so I want to kind of keep that consistent, and I'm just going to add a little bit of white to my brush. Now, even though I'm doing that, it still doesn't mean that I want to have these thick, giant lines of paint, so I do want to be cautious with spreading that paint out to make sure. So I've got something like that going for that background. And then, as far as the tabletop goes, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dip into that blue. And then I'm going to add some more white. And I'm going to make it a very, very light blue. But the key to this tabletop is I want it to look flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this biggest brush and I'm going to pull straight across this way. Now to me, these colors look too similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into my white some more. And I'm going to soften that. And one thing that's going to help to differentiate these, make these look different, is going to be the direction that our brush strokes are going. By painting them a different direction, that's going to go ahead and make it look like it's different from the background. So you can see here's, let's say, the wall, and then here's the tabletop. Another thing that we can do is we can take this dark blue and we can give it a nice line going this way. And again, don't press too hard. Anytime you press hard with these brushes, the harder you press, the wider the line is going to be. I don't want to make it too crazy of a line here. But this way, we can tell the difference. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse off that brush. Like this. Get it nice and dried off so it's ready to go for next time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start painting that frosting. Now I want my frosting to be white because again, that's my favorite kind, but that doesn't mean that you have to make yours white. Remember that at all times, that when you're painting, we gave you certain colors, and I'm going to show you how to do certain colors here, but you can easily change the colors if that's what you want to do. So, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to get this all painted in white, and then what's going to happen, so I can still see those pencil lines, which is good because it's giving me a little bit of a shading feature here. But I'm going to dip into that light blue again. And I'm going to go over those lines so that we see just this little bit of blue. It's like a reflection on the frosting itself. And as you can see, when I get to the edge, I go ahead and I kind of let my brush get wider. So I start thin, and I go this way, and then I start to press down and bring it down, and it gets thinner. And that's just helping shape the frosting. So then, I'm going to rinse off this brush again, and I'm going to go ahead, and I'm going to make a pink, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some more white to my plate here so that I can have some pink. And again, it depends on how bright you want that pink to be. You can leave it red, you can do a totally different color, whatever you want to do here. So I've got a pink going, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to start painting in these parts. Now remember, we want to go ahead and get into those little crisscross spots or zigzag spots. Whenever you are holding on to your canvas, remember that you want to pay attention to what spots are wet and which spots are dry. Otherwise you're going to get a giant thumbprint in there, which you can cover up with paint, no worries if you do. But it certainly does make it easier to not have to deal with it. So you just want to remember to look, and depending on your lighting, you should be able to see a little glisten, and that's how you know that it's wet. And if you don't see that little glisten, then you'll know that it's dry. Go ahead, and I'm just filling in this whole area with that pink. And I'm going to use this flat edge, and I'm going to press soft, and that's going to help give me a nice clean line here. So we've got that liner painted, but we did this little zigzag for a reason. And if you think of when you see a cupcake liner, it's typically like an accordion. And so if you think of, let's just take our paper towel for example, it kind of folds like this. So it goes in and out and in and out. And if you look at this, you can see that it gets darker on one side, it gets lighter over here. It depends on where the lighting's hitting. But what I want to do then is I want to clean off this brush, and I want to go into my medium brush. And while my cupcake liner is wet, I want to take just a little bit of red. Don't worry if it hits the pink because we want to blend together. And now you can see I've got that little flat side going here. And at the points, I want to go ahead and make like a little line like this. Now, as I come in, it's going to follow the angle of this edge. But then as we get towards the center, it's going to start to kind of straighten out here. And they don't have to all be perfect. But see how they kind of straighten out as we go. So that's kind of what you want to do here. And then you can even do, on the high ones, you can kind of give it a little in-between line. Like that. So that's just something fun. And then if you want, we can even give it a little bit of a shading here down at the bottom. Just make it a little bit darker. Kind of follow it up on the edge. You're going to go ahead and clean out your brush, get it all dried off, ready for another color. Now the next color that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make a brown. And so to make a brown, we want to think of our color wheel. And draw it this time. So if we've got red, we have yellow, and we have blue as our primary colors. Red and yellow make orange. Yellow and blue make green. Red and blue make purple. So here's our primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. Those are the colors that we got in our kit, but we can make any of these secondary colors by mixing these colors. And to make brown, you actually take opposite sides. So red and green would make brown, purple and yellow can make brown, blue and orange can make brown. So we are gonna go ahead and make brown. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do blue and orange. So, and I don't need a lot. I don't need to make a lot because all I'm doing is I'm going to make brown for the filling of the cake. So I'm going to use some red and some yellow. Here's my orange. Got a good orange right there. Now I'm just going to add some blue. You can see I'm getting a brown. I want to make it really, really mixed together here. I'm hoping you guys can see that. I'm going to make it really, really mixed together. So I've got some brown on my brush, so now I'm going to be really careful. I'm going to come in, oh, just like chocolate. I do this painting a lot for some birthday parties when I do my painting parties, and every time it makes me so hungry for cupcakes, especially when I get to this part, because chocolate is my favorite. Now, if you're not a chocolate fan, remember you've got yellow, so you can easily make it yellow cake. Just coming in here, trying to get into all these angles. Now again, if you don't like using this brush for that, go ahead and go into your smaller brush, roll your paint onto your brush, and you can go ahead and give it an outline like that. Okay, and then you can go ahead and fill that in. So if that's easier, for sure, go ahead and do that. So, got our little chocolate cake here. All right, I'm gonna clean out that brush. Now what I'm gonna do, oops, I gotta clean out this brush too. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to take my red and I'm gonna do just a little outline to this zigzag so we can see it just a little bit better. Give it a little bit more definition here. Just gonna go ahead and add some more. Go ahead and roll it right into that paint. Just like that. Okay? And then, I guess I didn't have to wash that off. We're gonna get some more red on there. We'll give that cherry a little outline here. I'm not scrubbing with this brush, but I am being cautious. This was kind of a big space, so I want to be cautious with how I use this brush. I don't want it to get smashed and ruined. There we go. Just like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and roll into that brown again. So I've got some on here. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my cherry stem. Now, if you can see that, it kind of dragged. I didn't have enough paint on my brush. That's what that's telling me. So I added more paint. Now I'm doing it again. And as I come to the edge, I am letting it get wider, because if you look at a cherry stem, it gets wider at the edge like that. And then I'm going to go ahead, dry this off, and I'm going to go and I am going to put some sprinkles. Because who doesn't love sprinkles on their cupcakes? You don't have to put sprinkles, but I like to put sprinkles. Now, each time I change my color, I'm going to make sure that I clean off that brush, because I could mix them. Uh-oh, do you see my drip? Got a drip of water there. So I'm going to make sure that I get that all nice and dry, because otherwise that is going to hurt my painting. It is going to go ahead and drip, and then I'm going to have to deal with trying to figure out what to do. Now remember, if you watch the tips and tricks, you'll know what to do. If you get a color that drips or you get water that drips somewhere, what you're going to do, let's say that water dripped onto my painting. What I'm going to do is I'm simply going to take my paper towel, I'm going to blot it so that it comes away, I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to paint over it. So, let's see. I've got some red and some yellow sprinkles. So now I'm going to go ahead, I think I'm going to do just a couple of blue ones. There we go. Do love sprinkles. There. So now what I want to do, just like I do at the end of all of my paintings, is I want to look and I want to see if there's any spots that I should touch up. If there's any spaces that I missed or anything that I should go over again. One thing that is bothering me right now, and you may have had the same problem and maybe you haven't, I'm going to go back in with this brush, the medium brush, and I'm going to give my cherry a little second coat here. So I can see some streaks, and that's bothering me. And then there's one more space that I see on mine that I'd like to fix, and I'll show you here. If we look right here, I can see one, I can see my pencil, and two, I can see a white gap. And it's little details like that that's going to be important for you to be willing to go back in and change, because it's little details like that that are gonna help make you look even better as you paint, because it's showing how hard you've worked on it. Oops, I got a little too much white there, so I'm going to add just a little bit of blue. There we go. Blend that right in. And maybe right here. There's one more thing that I think that I could do to make this a little bit better. And it's funny because it's little details like this that change how something looks. So the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this small brush, the detail brush, I'm going to roll it into my white paint, and I am going to make a little line on the tip of the cherry, and I'm going to make a little V right like that. I want to curve this line just a little bit more instead of making it so straight. Like that. And then get a little bit more on. I'm going to go ahead and give it a little white line like that. And that's it. So go ahead, wash off that brush. Make sure all your brushes are nice and cleaned off. Make sure you got everything exactly the way you want it, or keep working at it. And we're all set.